Okay, here we are. Okay, here you are, just to show you a little bit of sense of history. Here's Boston. Here's Lexington, where the American Revolution started. Lexington and Concord over here. North end of Boston over here, where Paul Revere rode right up through Cambridge, Somerville, Arlington to Lexington. British are coming, British are coming. 1775, April. He didn't actually make it to his destination. There were 3 riders. There was one of them that made it to the end, was William Dawes. He took a different route. William Dawes rode through Brookline here, and then somehow up, I guess, through Belmont to Lexington, which brought him fairly close to Newton right here. You got Newton, the border town's actually here. There's Newton, Waltham, and Lexington. So Lexington's about 8 miles north of Newton. Now we're going to zoom in to show you my house in Newton. Somehow I managed to stay out of the direct path of that whole revolution stuff, and there's like nothing, despite how close it is to Boston. Here's Boston. Here's the Old North Church, where one is by land and 2 is by sea, and Paul Revere rode out from there. We're not that far. We're only about 7 or 8 miles west of Boston, but there's like nothing noting any particular involvement of anybody from Newton in that revolution. Pretty incredible, and a lot of information must have been lost. In 1727, here in Newton, a house was built. That was 50 years before the Revolution. There was a house built here, which is still there, and it's one of these old red barn-colored houses, right here on Greenwood Street. In 1859, a baby was born in 1859 in that house, and that family owned what's 3 streets here. These 3 streets were a 40-acre farm. And the baby that was born here in 1859, when he was about 40 years old, built himself a new house just 100 yards or so away, right here. And that's the house I was born in, 100 years after the man who built it was born, just 100 yards away. Now, here's the problem. This satellite photograph shows what my house looked like sometime in the last year. It's a fairly recent photograph. But when I click on bird's eye view, I get a much older image. This image is probably at least 3 years old. This is my house. I'll show you first the house. Oh, come on. The house that was built in 17. There's the red house that was built in 1727. A bird's eye view. This is the old 1727 house, and over here is a house that was built around 1800. This white one. This white house has been there since about 1800, and this red one has been here since 50 years before the Revolution. Man was born in this house, was about 40 years old, and this family owned 40 acres here. He built himself this house in the first years of the 1900s, the 20th century. The first years. Now, can I zoom this in? Yeah, zoom in. Okay, so let's take a little zoom in on the red house. I didn't realize. Zoom in on the red house, 1727. There it is. There it is, an old farmhouse. And over here is the old red barn. That's a bit in disrepair, but it belongs to this house. And this barn was used, it was a riding stable where they kept horses, and they had a riding school located here in the 1930s. 1920s and 1930s, I think. They had this riding school and used these 40 acres as these houses weren't here, and as a riding riding course. There's a circular course here. This house was here. This is the house I was born in. Alright. Now this is facing north. Here's the house. Here's the garage. These trees were planted here 100 years ago. I'm going to flip the image around now. Facing north. Now facing west. This is facing west now, so we were looking before from here to here. Here's the garage, here's the house, here's the trees that were planted 100 years ago. Alright, and facing south, so we're looking from the opposite end. The garage is under these trees. Here's the house facing the other direction, and then we'll say facing east. No, we're facing west again. There's the garage and the house. So there's facing west, facing north, facing east. Come on. Come on. Damn it. Okay. Ugh. Why isn't this image showing now? It's annoying. Come on. Slowly. There we go. Alright, facing east. Facing east, you can hardly see the house behind these trees that were 100-year-old trees. You can't even see the house. They're hidden under the trees. Facing east. Now we look at the aerial photograph. These photographs were at least 3 years ago. Now we look at the more contemporary photograph after the asshole that bought this house, and what you will see here is that he has cut down every fucking tree on the property. He connected the house to the garage to make a fucking McMansion, but he cut down all the trees, every fucking tree on the whole property. He completely trashed. That's the image that I saw of my house 3 months ago in May that made me so angry that I said I have to move back, even though I'll have to pay at least 50% higher rent than I would anywhere else. I got lucky. I'm paying not 50% higher. I'm paying maybe 20 to 25. I'm paying about 25% higher than I would have paid if I hadn't moved back to Newton, but I got pretty lucky. So this is what the house looks like since sometime 4 months to a year ago, this image, and this is what it looked like 3 years ago. This house that had these trees that were there for 100 years, decades before any of these other houses were built. That was the historical property, and you saw what happened to it, and it made me so angry. Because the bastard that we sold it to, I knew my first gut feel. The first thing I heard about it was this guy had wanted to tear the house down, and I said, no, I can't allow that. I'm not selling to some guy who's going to tear the house down. It's a historical property. It has it deserves to live on. And I was pressured, and they said, well, just meet with the guy. You don't have to, all you have to do is just talk to him and just listen to what he has to say. You don't have to, no commitment, no pressure. Can't you just meet with the guy? Okay. So the guy came over. I told him I thought the house was historical, and it shouldn't be torn down, and it should be preserved, its historical value. And then the guy left. And then, supposedly no pressure, phone calls start coming in 15 to 30 minutes after the guy leaves. Oh, he wants a decision by 4 o'clock. You have to make a decision. Are you going to sell it to him by 4 o'clock? I said, well, I can't make that decision right now. And then pressure. Okay, they kept calling back all afternoon. Okay, well, 5 o'clock is the absolute deadline. You have to make a decision. Blah, 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 blah. And they kept pushing, and the rationalization was, if we don't agree to sell to this guy, then the court could step in and say that we've taken too long to sell the house, and so now we've lost. Now they can take over, and it's out of our hands. We don't have any say in what happens, and something terrible could happen if that were to happen. Well, something terrible could and did happen, and this is the worst. This is just about the worst thing that could have happened was what happened. And the most optimistic view I can take is that maybe if I had not agreed to sell to this guy, I would have sold it to somebody else. I would have agreed to sell it to one of the other people who would have been a family that would have lived in the house, and it would have still had. They wouldn't have cut down all the trees. It probably would still be very much looking the way it looks in this photograph. I would have sold it to one of the other people, and not this asshole, this destroying asshole who totally demolished and trashed the whole value of this property.